Dear participants, greetings and welcome to the International Online Faculty Development Program on benchmarking for cross-industry best practices powered by Quality Fables. Topic of today's discussion is earning the trust of workers. The fable would be peels and meals. Dear participants, I am Dashrath Raj K. Shetty, Associate Professor, Manipal Institute of Technology, Manipal. I'm also the General Secretary of IBAT, the think tank. Dear friends, we have with us two distinguished personalities. Our today's speaker, who is a distinguished alumnus of IIT Mumbai, Sri Suresh Lulaji. He is often referred to as the quality guru of India. He was directly mentored by Dr. J.M. Juran, the father of quality. Welcome, sir. We also have with us the head of Department of Commerce, Dr. Sandeep Shanoy, who heads the, he's the director of compliance, Manipal Academy of Higher Education, a deemed university. Dr. Shanoy was instrumental in making DOC as the most prominent department of MAHE. Now, dear friends, it's a time to listen to Sri Suresh Lulaji, the author of 100 Quality Fables. Let us later try to pole vault the same to achieve educational excellence. Today's topic, as I said earlier, is earning the trust of workers. Over to you, Lula, sir.
Good morning. Sorry about that.
No problem. Yes, sir. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Dashrath Raja.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
A warm introduction. The theme for this FDP is benchmarking for cross-industry best practices. Now, benchmarking, as defined by Dr. Robert Kemp, is the search for best practices across industry. I happen to be trained by Dr. Robert Kemp. The purpose of this FDP is where I'll present a situation through a fable. And the management expert, Raja, will harvest the best practices that he considers from the fable. The best practices will thereafter be nurtured by the education expert, Dr. Sandeep Shanoy, into next practices as applicable in the education sector. So I'll just give a story, best practices to next practices, innovative next practices. You can't just plug and play a best practice. You have to adapt it to a next practice. Now, a word about Kimpro Foundation. We are committed to quality improvement in education and healthcare. We all collectively believe in benchmarking for cross-industry purposes. In this case, the fable, Peels and Meals, we're going to be talking about an earth-moving equipment division of a large automotive unit. You may wonder, what does that have to do with education? believe you me, over 80% of processes and practices that drive any organization are not proprietary. They are generic. Only 20% are proprietary. So the need for cross-industry benchmarking on generic practices should be seen as a big, big opportunity. I need the next slide. Raja, can I have the next slide?
Yes, sir. I'll share it from my side. Yeah, it's coming, sir, from your side itself. Yeah.
Okay. A quality fable is not about animals. It's not about fiction. A quality fable is about real people and real situations. The quality fable that follows demonstrates: see the problem with your own eyes. Dr. Duran would call this an autopsy. Listen to the voice of customers, workers. Workers are internal customers. The prerequisite for external customer satisfaction is internal customer satisfaction. Fields and meals. This is the story of Caterpillar, a vertical of Hindustan Motors earth-moving division in a location called Tiruvellur near Chennai. Yes, once upon a time, in 1987, officers had club-like canteen facilities, and this earth-moving equipment division was no different. The workers had a canteen which looked more like a production line. This workers' canteen operated on a 3-shift basis. It was on the ground floor of the officers' club. The officers' club was also the regular venue for visiting principals from Columbus, Ohio, Caterpillar. So what was the problem? The staircase leading to the officers' club was a challenge for the nasal systems of the sophisticated visitors. They politely put handkerchiefs on their nose and they climbed up. Why? Because the garbage containers were overflowing and they gave a stink. Quality was certainly not a way of life at this plant. It was so chronic that It had become an organization culture. The new president of the plant, Ramesh Daga, who was a quality enthusiast, questioned the volume and cost of garbage. A key piece of information was that the local municipality refused to shift the garbage, resulting in leasing out private garbage collectors at 7,000 rupees per day. This does not include the wasted food that were being sent out. Collectively, we refer to this as cost of poor quality. A management team was set up to solve this chronic problem: garbage not collected. In order to understand the problem, the team set up two types of waste bins: avoidable waste for cooked food and unavoidable waste such as peels and packaging. The avoidable waste accounted for 2/3 of the total canteen waste. So the diagnostic journey started interviewing workers during their mealtime. The plant worked in 3 shifts, mind you, interviewing workers. What was the singular question? Why do you waste food? A typical response was, "Sir, we are from South India and you serve us North Indian food?" Further, the meal break is only 30 minutes and the lines are too long. So I pile up the food. Another response was, "The ladles are too large. I could do with smaller servings." Another, "The thalis are too large. So I pile up food." The remedial action involved inviting a team of wives of the workers by rotation to set the menu and supervise the same. The wives were competing. The workers were getting excellent food. Another step was scrapping the large ladles and thalis and replacing them with smaller ones. Investing the COPQ saved into worker welfare, winning the trust of the workers. It was not for the shareholders. The workers had worked for it, earned it, and it was plowed in for worker welfare. The workers' canteen now doubles up as a recreation club with facilities for carom and table tennis. The walls are also sparkling white. and they're adorned with paintings of their children of workers. The company even published a calendar of the 12 best paintings of children. Can you imagine the impact? The seeded lessons, according to me, are chronic problems tend to become culture issues. If things are happening slowly, if we are wasting, and we see this in all walks of life, you need to challenge every norm. The job of a manager is to solve chronic problems. Don't sit in your office and make assumptions. See the problem with your own eyes. Listen to the voice of workers. They are not stupid. They're not stupid. You have to respect them. Listen to them. Give them dignity. Earn the trust of workers through leadership actions. The key word is trust. You may love me, you may hate me, but please trust me. Trust is the absolute gift you can give in a relationship. Are there any best practices you would like to adapt for your educational institution? Think creatively. Use your right brain. The most underemployed asset of any organization is the creativity resident in the right brain. Why has it gone dormant? You were born with a right brain. You used it as a child. Unfortunately, we send that child to school where the reward and recognition is for left brain logical activity. Math, science, law, etc., etc., etc. With that, I will hand it over to Raja.
Thank you, sir, for that enlightening presentation. And it's always easy when it is and a concept is explained with the help of a fable. Thank you, sir. Dear participants, some of the specific learnings that attracted my attention during Lula sir's talk are job of a manager is to solve chronic problems. Else, they tend to become cultural issues. The next one is to see the problem with your own eyes. Listen to the voice of the workers. Why these learnings attracted my attention is because I could directly relate these things to some of the incidents or some of the actual happenings in my institution. I'll be sharing the examples from the education domain and Manipal, my workplace, related to these learnings. Dear participants, according to Gallup, culture is a system of values, beliefs, and behaviors that shape how actual work gets done. That is the way things work around here. In contrast, engagement is about employees' level of commitment to the organization and their work. That is how people feel about the way things work around here. Both are critical to business performance, hiring, retention, and innovation. So when I say business here, education domain as well. These hiring, retention, innovation, everything also happens in the education domain. For example, organizations that actively manage their cultures typically have 30% higher innovation levels and 40% higher retention levels. Additionally, organizations with highly engaged workforces outperform their peers by 147% in earnings, and their employees are 87% less likely to leave, according to the latest Gallup survey. These statistics tell us that cost of quality comes down drastically in an organization with a great organizational culture and employee engagement. The values of my organization, that is Manipal Academy of Higher Education, are integrity, transparency, quality, teamwork, execution with passion, and human touch. These values are deeply ingrained in the culture of our organization. I will state a couple of examples of teamwork and human touch. Let me first share the example of 2016, where a student pursuing her engineering from MIT Manipal was returning from her hometown, Pune. Her bus met with an severe accident at a place more than 200 kilometers away from Manipal. Dr. Balakrishna Maddodi of Civil Engineering Department, the then student welfare officer of MIT, sprang into action on receiving uh, the message from the local police station. Team Manipal, within no time, responded and arranged for the ambulance, understood the nature of injuries, and suggested appropriate first aid. The student sadly had lost both her arms, but the nerve endings were active as she got the right first aid and post treatment at Kasturba Medical College, Manipal, in time because of quick action of Team Manipal. I'm happy to share that later on, she was fortunate to receive arm donation from a Kerala donor, and both her hands were restored. All this could happen because the team Manipal, under the leadership of the student welfare officer those days, Dr. Madhuri, had again showcased the human touch, which was part of our value system in Manipal. The second example that is related to the cost of quality. So I'm not talking about cost of poor quality, even maintain doing the things right costs. So this is about related to the cost of quality. It is about a CDR or central data repository. We in the field of academics know that today educational organizations have to submit data to multiple accreditation organizations and ranking agencies. Each of these organizations need varied data in various formats. Collecting the data and putting it in different forms always becomes a tedious and cumbersome task. Those days, Dr. Sandeep Shanai was the director quality. Professor Rajesh was QMR at MIT Manipal, and I was the deputy QMR at MIT Manipal. Under the guidance of Dr. Sandeep Shanai, we developed a CDR software or central data repository software, which helped us to capture the data at the point of origin itself, that is, at the faculty level where the data is generated. Maybe this data includes how many guest lectures he has gone for, what are the number of workshops he has attended, what is his students' performance, everything at the faculty level and other operational level details where the data was generated. We made it a point that it is entered at the point or fed to the system at the point where it was generated. This software was also linked to the annual appraisal format of the respective employees. Hence, all the faculty members enter the data without the Great. This software enabled us to get ready data in the necessary format at any instant, thus reducing the wastage of many man hours. So, multiple entries, multiple collation efforts, multiple presentation efforts, everything got reduced. And at any moment, we could put the data in the necessary format that is each if a particular organization accreditation agency wants a particular format, we have the data, we put it in the, just extract the data, put it in the right format and submit. So many man hours were saved. So this is how, one, the top management understood that people were facing difficulty of the quality department has to ask the data multiple times, they had to collate it in various formats. But now at one point where the data is generated, we made them to enter the data, and we saved lots of man hours, hence bringing down the cost of quality in considerable amounts. These were the two examples which I could quickly relate to my domain when I listened to Lula sir's lecture. Now, I would ask a couple of questions and understand more about these topics from my mentor, Dr. Sandeep Shonai, the head of compliance, that is Director Compliance of MAHE, and know more information related to organization culture, CBO, PQ, etc. Welcome, Sandeep, sir.
Thanks, Dasharath.
Sir, my first question to you would be, sir, have you observed any chronic problems that have become cultural issues in the education domain? Maybe in Manipal or maybe outside, where I know that you visit a couple of other organizations to mentor those organizations. So can you share a few of them with us?
Yeah, thanks, Dashrath. It was an interesting fable by Dr. Lulla, which mentioned about looking at the problem with our own eyes and listening to the voice of the workers and treating workers with dignity. Uh, Coming to the question, yes, I have observed the typical problem with the academic world today is publications. So typically, most of the organizations, academic organizations, expect the academic staff to publish research papers, and then there is an expectation from the University Grants Commission that each faculty has to publish 2 papers, and then most of the faculties know that this is going to be a target, and it's going to be a part of their performance appraisal, and they ritually go about doing it. Okay, let us try, and then they start working on it. But end of the day, after a year's time, they find that they're not able to meet the target. They find that I'm not able to publish 2 papers, or I'm not able to publish papers in good journals, which are the expectations of most of the top academic organizations. And then they start losing hopes, or they start feeling that we cannot achieve this. And many a times this leads to a kind of demotivation. So if you look at the new education policy, it talks about motivated, energized, and capable faculties. So many a times we find that faculties have the requisite qualifications, they have the competencies, but they need some kind of a planning, some kind of a strategic trust which will help them to achieve their goals. So what I have seen is many of the times the faculties are not able to meet their targets in terms of publications, and that actually results in maybe sometimes their promotions getting delayed, or sometimes they are not able to get the incentives what they targeted, and then they end up getting demotivated, and over a period of time they relegate themselves to the fact that probably I'm not a good researcher, and then the performance declines in that research area, and when the organization loses a good faculty in terms of the contribution they can make to the academic world. So this is one of the things which I found happening in the academic world, and probably organizations need to look at this because if you look at Indian context, except for some institutions like Indian Institute of Science or IITs, you find most of the organizations, academic organizations, are not able to meet the publication requirements as expected by world rankings. So if you look at some of the top universities across the globe, the kind of productivity we see in publications, that kind of productivity is not evident here. And if we really have to be in the top 200 in world rankings, we need to really have that prolificness in publications. And that can happen only if organizations act on this and change the culture of research and bring in those kind of changes which will help them to publish. So I have seen this happening in many of the organizations. And of course, at Manipal, we have taken up some steps to handle these things. But again, it's very important for organizations to note that today we have to actually go from a teaching intensive universities to research intensive universities. The new education policy talks about it. So the policy talks about two kind of universities. One is teaching intensive university with some research, and another is research intensive university. So if the universities are aspiring to be top in the top global rankings, they need to be research intensive. For that, they need to take cognizance of this. So the culture of research has to improve, and that is very important.
Thank you, sir. There is a next question from Ms. Rhoda Galango. Her question is, sir, can you give us tips on how leaders can develop a culture of trust in the organization without their private lives being questioned?
It's a very intensive or very complex question. But yes, I would say yes, leaders have to, especially academic leaders, need to look at, they have to listen to their staff, teaching staff as well as non-teaching staff. They have to listen to the voice of their internal customers and understand the context in which they are functioning. Because in today's world, if you look at the kind of complexity we work in, we have situations where sometimes you may have to work from home. There are cases where the employees have been allowed to work from home because of certain situations, or there are cases where they have been given leave to take care of some of their personal requirements, but at the same time they also take care of the organizational requirements. So we need to listen to the requirements of our staff. If we are really looking at a long-term aspiration of the organization growing into a world-class one, we need to make sure the employees feel that they are being valued by the organization. That can come only when they trust that the organization understands, listens to them, and takes care of their needs. So it's very important, and that's where the leaders need to listen. They need to look at the requirements of their employees and then discuss with the management and find out how they can take care of them.
Thank you, sir. Under the leadership of Sandeep sir happens to be my mentor as well, and I was his, my management student. So under his leadership, we in MIT use a questionnaire similar to the Q12 by Gallup with some modifications and some additions. So this survey, helps the leadership to understand the levels of employee engagement and the motivation. It also helps us to know the organization culture and allows us to see if it is proceeding in the right direction. I would like to share some of the questions of Q12 as proposed by Gallup. So these questions are measured in the scale of 5 in our place. So it's like, do you know what is expected of you at work? Do you have the materials and equipment to do your work right? At work, do you have opportunity to do what you do the best every day? In the last 7 days, have you received recognition or praise for doing good work? Does your immediate supervisor or someone at work seem to care about you as a person? Is there someone at work who encourages your development? So similarly, we have a number of questions that uh, gets us the 360-degree view of employees liking for the organization, liking for the work, how the work culture is there, so on. So this helps us to get the voice of our workers and implement the better policies and so on. So this feedback is taken, compared with the previous feedback. We check what is going wrong, what has to be rectified, or what is going right, how to improve upon that, and so on. Sandeep sir, my next question to you would be, sir, what's the difference between the heads of educational institutions and other corporates? So, according to you, how can a leader in education domain earn workers' trust through leadership actions? Do you have some specific examples from your side, sir?
Yeah. According to me, there is almost no difference, because leader is a leader whether they are academic leaders or corporate leaders. Of course, in India, the education domain falls in the area of a non-profit kind of sector, where we are not supposed to profit in education. However, the actions required from leaders is almost similar. We need to lead by examples. We need to be role models. Typically, I would say, I would give a simple example. During the corona pandemic, it is the leaders who led by examples, who were at the forefront in leading their teams, were able to successfully handle the situation and make sure that the academic organizations functioned as per their requirement, because there were a lot of changes required in the organizations, especially uh, making the faculties to teach online as compared to traditional teaching. Examination systems somewhere had to be made online. Some cases we have to conduct classes in a blended mode. So all this requires the leaders to lead by examples, to stand in the forefront, and to give a kind of assurance to their peers or their colleagues that yes, this is doable and we should be able to do it. That will actually help the organization to take care of these kind of challenges. So I feel that whether it's a corporate world or an academic world, it is the leaders who make a lot of difference, and the way they handle things, the way they walk the talk, creates a trust in the employees that yes, we are doing the right thing. So it gives them an assurance that they are on the right track, and that gives a good direction to them as well.
Thank you, sir. So there is one more question from Jemima from Nepal. The question is, sir, have you observed any COPQ issue in your organization that was resolved after correcting the culture?
Yeah, I'll just give an example of my department. We were looking at a publishing target of at least one publication per faculty, and we had given that as a target as a part of the annual appraisal at a particular point of time. And then I was finding that we were not able to get that.
When this is done. No.
We were not able to handle that target. The faculties were struggling. So what I did is I went back and did a study. I did a survey with the faculties to find out how they handle their time, what is the kind of plans they have for research, and a kind of time and motion studies in terms of understanding how much time each faculty devotes to research during a particular academic year. So after doing the research, it was an eye opener that I found that the faculties were not actually the kind of time invested in research and the kind of expectations in terms of output was a mismatch. So if they would follow the same trend, they would not be able to publish or may be able to achieve the target even for the next 3 years. So then I went for a course correction and informed them that you need to collaborate. You need to add some more collaborators with you so that you have extra hands to help you in your publications. So that will definitely increase your number of publications and help you to achieve the targets. So when we went to that level, we found that the employees were more productive and they were able to meet their targets, and couple of them were even able to publish 5 publications with collaboration. So it was something where we found that collaboration was the buzzword, and we found that uh, effectiveness of those collaborations makes a lot of difference to the productivity of the employees. And we also found the employees could find some more time to devote to the regular other administrative work as well. So it was a win-win for everyone, because they could meet their targets, they could take care of the other activities in the department which was expected, and at the same time they could meet their performance appraisal. So this is one of the examples I felt every organization should look at the employees and find out how they are handling their time, and then give them adequate kind of advice or kind of guidance so that they meet their targets.
So there is one more question from Dr. Jerome. The question is, will the new educational policy highly impact the organizational cultures across the educational institutions in India?
Yes, definitely, because there is a high emphasis on teacher training, there is a high emphasis on faculty development, there is a high emphasis on multidisciplinary education. So today, most of the colleges are going in a single discipline kind of education, where other discipline inputs are limited. I'm not saying it is not there, but it is limited. So tomorrow, as the policy takes shape and implementation starts, you may find more of multidisciplinary education setting up in the various institutions. Universities will be encouraged to be more multidisciplinary in nature. Even institutions like IITs will be also having more of diversity in terms of the disciplines what they offer, and we may find big universities with the high level of interdisciplinary research happening. So you may also have colleagues with the different backgrounds working with you rather than on the same singular discipline. So there will be a lot of change in the way things will happen or the culture of the organization. So there's a lot of things which may change. So also the structure of the universities also is being thought referred in the policy, that there will be no affiliating university. There will be more of um, universities with constituent units. So these are some of the changes which may happen. So of course, we may have to wait and see how it will materialize, but definitely a lot of changes are expected in the education sector.
There's one more question by Dr. Ahmed. The question is, will more of private university coming in the domain of education bring in more of corporate culture, losing out in terms of the current educational organizations work in terms of not for profit? Will it be lost in the long run?
It did not happen like that. It is basically, of course, we need a little bit of corporate culture into the education sector to bring in that kind of employability into the system, and bring in more of accountability. So, of course, in India, the education sector has always been encouraged as a not-for-profit sector, and that ideology is still there. But however, keeping in mind the progression of the students, keeping in mind the needs of employability, it's very important that the industry academia gap should be reduced. And to reduce that, there is always a need for bringing in corporate culture into the education system, or corporate interference or corporate involvement. A simple example is if you look at the Birlas, and if you look at BITS as a model, you find that it's a model of excellence, and I don't see any dilution in any way in the education sector by bringing in the corporate this one. So it's up to the how the corporate develops the organization and leads it to excellence. So this is not going to be a limiting factor.
Thank you, Sandeep sir, for answering all our queries.
I think Suresh Lulla sir has something to say.
Yes, sir.
The interaction is excellent. And before I forget my reactions, to Dr. Shinoy's statements. You spoke of research-intensive institutions. Now, my question to you is, if you had to do cross-industry benchmarking to come up with an innovative solution, would you be open to that?
Yes, because the policy also talks about interdisciplinary research and also bringing in the element of uh, innovation and incubation of various businesses by the universities. So it's very important that the research in the universities should lead to uh, patents, and it should also lead to commercialization of those patents, and then lead to innovation. So ultimately, it's very important that cross-industry benchmarking is apparently required, because without that, the research benefits of the research will not reach the community. So as the policy talks about doing research in those areas which benefits the society apparently, and then make sure that it reaches the end user or the citizen of the country. So that's where it's very apparent that research intensive universities will have to engage with the industry and closely work with them in terms of cross industry benchmarking, as well as learning the problems of the industry and trying to find solutions. So that is how it is going to happen. That's how is the expectations from the policy.
Okay. Would you consider best practices of ISRO? I'm just throwing it as a question. That's a research-intensive organization.
Yes, definitely.
Can we learn something from them and create next practices for Manipur?
Yes, definitely. It should be a good this one, because it's a research intensive unit, and definitely there are a lot of things to learn from them.
Okay. There was a question on cost of work quality and culture, etc. I'm going to make it very commercial. Cost of work quality is resident in all your processes. Don't just think of the education process. You have an admissions process, you have a canteen process, you have so many processes. What percentage of your total cost as an educational institution would you believe is cost of work quality? Most of it is budgeted for. You don't even know it exists. What percentage?
It's a very tough question to answer. But when we look at the education sector, a large chunk of our budget goes into one is in terms of maintaining the various facilities in terms of laboratories and kind of facilitating kind of equipments and all. And second is in terms of faculties and teaching staff remuneration. And so a large chunk of the budget goes into this. Then another aspect is, as you rightly said, is in terms of admissions, and there are support services like Directorate of Research, which supports in terms of giving information on research. And there is a purchase department, and there is a department on quality, and so many other departments which support the university in terms of what do you say, delivering its academic services. So keeping that in mind, each of these departments will definitely have a certain percentage of COPQ. I'm not exactly aware about what percentage. We have never looked into that as of now. But definitely there is an opportunity in each of these departments to reduce that. Just like Dashrath mentioned, um, for any academic organizations, annually we have to submit a lot of data to the ranking agencies, and also for accreditation purposes. And a lot of time is invested in collecting this data and analyzing it and trying to follow up with that. And we end up spending a lot of man hours in doing that. And if we have a very efficient repository which actually captures the data as and when it happens, it will save a lot of time of the uh, particular department, and then they can deploy that time in doing something more productive. And instead of doing the operational level job, they can do the analytical jobs, or they can do the kind of next level things where they can strategically think what they can do with that data. But many times we end up spending a lot of time in collecting the data, trying to find out whether anything is missing, then try to replenish it. And so a lot of time is wasted in that. So keeping that in mind, yes, in each of the department, there is a significant opportunity to improve our this one and reduce the gap. I'm not very clear about how much percentage, but definitely there is a scope for improvement in each of these, whether it's admissions or whether it is purchase or whether it is uh, finance or it's quality or any other departments apart from the academic.
Okay. I'll just throw some statistics at you. In batch mode manufacturing, the COPQ is 25% of total cost. In continuous process industry, it is lower. It's around 18 to 20%. In service industry, such as hotels, hospitals, it's 40%. Compare that to profit of the organization. It's a huge opportunity, and that opportunity can be unearthed by us by looking for chronic problems that need solution and using a structured way of solving the problem, from definition to diagnosis to designing a remedy and locking it into your systems for accreditation. The hardest part is defining a problem. We end up solving problems that nobody wants a solution to. Defining the right problems and creating senior management and leadership teams to solve them also gives walk your talk, what you mentioned, for leaders. They set the example that we are solving the big problems. A culture needs to be created for solving every problem that we see on the plant, on the campus. Those are my reactions to the subjects that you've covered. And I think there's, Manipal stands such a great opportunity to be benchmarked globally. Just create the culture. Faculty must understand how to define problems and how to solve them. We tend to normally treat the symptoms of the problem. We don't go into the root causes. And so the symptomatic evidence reappears. A parallel would be you get a headache, you take a crocin, headache gone. 3 hours later, headache returns. You take another crocin. All our quality practices are crocins. When the headache becomes chronic, you go to a doctor. Doctor, I've had this headache for so long. The doctor wants to know, have you been watching IPL at night? Have you been watching Test cricket? This thing, that thing? No, sir, I don't watch TV. Okay, get these tests done. Diagnosis. The doctor looks at the reports and says, sir, you don't have a headache problem. You have a constipation problem. We need to correct your constipation that is causing the headache. Are you getting the gist?
Yes.
We're treating symptomatic evidence of a problem. We need to treat the chronic problems, not symptomatic problems. And all what we are doing in industry, in healthcare, in all organizations is band-aids, band-aid solutions. We want permanent solutions and your cost of poor quality will come down. Back to you, Doctor.
Sandeep sir,
Yeah.
I request for your concluding.
Oh yeah, I forgot both of you are doctors.
Sandeep sir, I request your concluding remarks.
Yeah, going by the discussion as I could summarize it, you have to really look at the problems more in depth, as Mr. Suresh Lulla rightly said. Symptomatic treatment will never solve the problem, but maybe temporarily give a relief. But we need to look at the problem more in depth, diagnose the requirements of the, break it down into more simpler levels, and then try to find out a permanent solution. Definitely, the problem will get solved, or at least it will be attended to a large extent. And then that will bring in a lot of trust in the employees that yes, the organization is looking at their welfare, is looking at their requirements. That is very important in any organizations. I believe that whether it's for example, if it's a teaching organization or an academic organization, whether it's a academician or it's a non-teaching staff, all of them contribute to the productivity of the organization. It's very important that we need to listen to their requirements and understand them, and then take actions which will lead to a good outcome for them. So it's very important for developing a trust of the workers, and that is where the leadership counts. So leadership in any organization, whether it's a corporate or whether it's an academic organization, will have to lead by role modeling. They need to lead by walking the talk. And then it's very important that any problem which we encounter, we should, as a leader, we should see the problem and with our own eyes, and then diagnose it, take steps to work towards solving it. That will definitely help us to take care of many of the problems in the organization and come out with very effective solutions. So it was a wonderful what do you say, experience in discussing on this particular fable, and very relevant to the academic world.
Thank you, Sandeep sir. May I now request Lula sir for his concluding remarks and also let us know more about our next quality fable.
Concluding remarks, I just would underline the word chronic. If you can differentiate between the symptom of a problem or a symptomatic problem and a chronic problem, that is 90% of the battle. Learn to define a problem. Problems must be depersonalized. How do we normally define a problem? Because you said this happened. Because something is happening. If you know the root cause, why haven't you corrected it? Stop blaming. It's systemic. Look at it objectively. Be specific. Observable problems. And don't try and eat an elephant in one bite. Break the elephant-sized problem bite by bite. You'll solve it. Now, since COPQ has become center stage in the discussion, it's very appropriate that our next session be on COPQ. It's an opportunity. The way we approach industry is, how would you like to double your profit without capital investment? Your choice is have a second campus, spend that much money, or improve the efficiencies of your processes that support the main value creation process. And you'll be surprised there are so many processes. Improve the efficiency, and you'll see COPQ staring at you. You'll question, why do I have inventory? Do you have inventory of things? I'm sure you have somewhere. Inventory is staring at you. How often do you do reworks? What is the speed of a process? Your processes have to be faster, better, cheaper. The cheaper is efficiency. Faster, better, cheaper. Faster, better, cheaper. And we're going to talk about COPQ in another context next time, in a bank. Everyone's been to a bank. Of course, today you do online banking, but in the older times, we went to banks. So it's a story of a bank. Back to you, Raja.
Thank you, Lula sir. Thank you, Sandeep sir. Dear participants, today we have understood that earning the trust of workers helps us to create a better culture. We need to build a culture of identifying chronic problems and solving them rather than going for the culture of symptomatic treatment. At this juncture, I remember a quote that tells, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So great strategies will be successful only if the organizational culture is excellent. Managing culture in an organization is neither as creative and unbounded as art, nor as precise and empirically evidenced as science. It is a craft, a blend of two. It's challenging and rewarding work. Thank you, dear friends. Thank you, dear colleagues. We hope to meet with more such exciting learnings in our next issue of webinar on Sunday, the 7th March. That's all for today. I once again thank Lula sir, Team Quimpro for hosting the event, and Dr. Sandeep Shanai sir for supporting this event by making DOC Mahe as a knowledge partner, and also for answering all our queries related to the educational domain. Thank you one and all. Have a great Sunday. Thank you.